started the recording.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, we both doing it at the same time.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you were going to do something else. All right. We are going to get started. I'm going to call this meeting of the School Facility Utilization Task Force to order at 7:03 p.m. The first order of business is the approval of our agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda from anybody on the floor.
So moved.
Motion by Mary Beth,
Second?
second by John. All those in favor? Raise your hands. Great. That is unanimous. Item B is communications to the School Facility Utilization Task Force. So we received one email from Teresa Campanelli the day after the last meeting asking if the schools are consolidated and we have an empty building, why are we looking at town usage for said properties? I thought we were looking to cut costs as a town. Why are we not talking about selling the property and using that money towards improvement of a school? So I think that though that is certainly up for debate, as you said, the purpose of this task force is to give direction to the Board of Ed about facility usage. If the Board of Ed decides that we do not want a building, then it would be up to the town to determine what happens after that and what the monies are appropriated for. But I don't think that we can make a decision about trading off a building to the benefit of the school budget as a task force. Would sort of be my response to that.
Okay.
No,
You're looking at me like.
I know, I'm looking at you because usually that's something that I would imagine, usually when we're talking about lines of responsibility between the task force and other things, it's usually something that you comment on. So that's why it was a natural thing for me to look at. It's not anything other than that.
Well, I'm just expecting at some point during our meetings is Michelle coming up with some feasible alternate uses though, for us to have some idea of what we might do with any of the schools.
Yeah. That was the only communication we had. So again, I'm happy to take additional communications from the public. If we need them, please feel free to email us with additional questions. With that said, I'm going to move on to item C, the School Facility Utilization Task Force Chair's Report. I don't have much to report that's new, other than just a reminder for folks that we will have a public informational meeting on May 2nd. That will be more of a Q&A between us and the town. So feel free to tell people who cannot be here today or in any other meetings that that's a good time to come and discuss options in a more back and forth manner. With that said, I'm going to move on to item D, routine business. So the first item under that is the approval of the minutes from our April 8th meeting, which have been provided to the task force. So I will take a motion to approve those minutes. If anybody's open to doing so, we can talk about it.
Motion to approve the minutes of April 8th.
Motion to approve the minutes by Mary Beth.
Second.
And a second by John. Any discussion? No, nobody looks good. Great. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please raise their hands. That is unanimous. All right. And then we'll do a quick check-in on the timeline. From my expectations, we are doing good. We are nearing the end of our research phase, and here to take a look at a variety of options based off of all the research that we've done so far. But Michelle, any other comments on the timeline?
No, we're exactly where we said we'd be. We're just kind of beginning the master planning, presenting initial concepts for discussion and refinement.
Yeah. Any other questions from the task force on the timeline? Great. That I will move right into item E, new business, which is Elliott and Associates delivers our site analysis and preliminary options. So, Michelle, I will turn it over to you and scoot a little bit out of the way of the TV.
Okay, excellent.
Kristen, do you have some extra copies of these, the presentation?
I'm sorry.
Do we have a couple extra copies of the presentation?
Only for task force members that are here right now.
If anybody wants to see this one, I have it on my laptop, or on my iPad.
I wanted to make it other people need it, and Michelle there never. I'll
Here
get
it
it
is,
back, I'll get it back to you.
I just know that there's a couple of things that are teeny tiny.
Okay, so tonight's agenda, we're gonna just talk about site analysis and review the 3 schools. We're also gonna circle back to projections and reimbursement. real quick, and then we'll get into 4 options with a bunch of variations. So there's a lot, and it's really all in spreadsheet form. Eventually, we'll move to kind of looking at additions and things. So site analysis, we really need to understand what's happening on these sites. We know that they're all a little bit challenged in some way, so we really want to identify those opportunities and constraints. It's really important because it's going to impact student arrival, circulation, security, and it's going to determine where we can add on to these buildings. So I also wanted to just circle back to this book, the Connecticut School Construction Standards and Guidelines. It goes a lot into site. Most of it's for looking at new sites. However, we do use it a lot to size a site. So they dictate that an elementary school should be about 10 acres plus 1 acre per every 100 students. So 2 of your sites are under that size, 1 is well over. And then just to note for site assessments on existing sites, if we add on to them, we do need to do a phase 1 environmental assessment eventually. So now we'll just kind of move into Bakerville. And I'm not doing a full-on site analysis, how the sun moves and wind moves. We can get really into that. I'm really just kind of honing in on where utilities are, vehicular circulation, pedestrian, where your playgrounds and your kind of open space play area is. So really what I'm highlighting, I gotta get my mouse a little better. We have the street here. You have one loop here and your other loop here. So bus and parents are somewhat separated here. I know it's not as problematic as I believe it is at New Hartford, but still a bit congested. I did note the vintage of each addition, so you can kind of see that on the site. But then you have 2 different septic systems to the back. A fairly flat site over here. I imagine you'd be taking out the portable structure and adding on somewhere in this vicinity, but it is going to take away play space. If we increase the school population, we're going to need more parking. There's a nice berm here that does help separate some of the play area to kind of keep it away from the street, but it does begin to open here. So I don't know if a fencing or something could be helpful in the future. Looking at New Hartford. New Hartford has its own issues, shall we say. We have an easement over here from the water treatment, I believe, to the side here. We obviously have the river, so you have strong contours here. I kind of highlighted the play area, the grass area here. Playgrounds here. There was septic, but now I believe it's on sewer. We have the separate parking here, and then we do have the one-way street, which we know adding on to this building and increasing population could also be a little problematic for the neighborhood. Antolini, and I did forget to mention the site sizes. I had that there. So Antolini is 174 acres. I kind of figured out that about 12.5 are developed more here. So it's a nice large private site. You do have a lot of contouring, grading going on. You have a nice field up here. However, it is problematic to get to it, especially in the winter. It becomes icy and they often can't even come up here. We have the parent drop-off loop that's over here. It would be great to increase parking there if we do enlarge the school, but it will affect parent drop-off in that sense. So there's a lot of different things to work out. There's also a drive up here, but I believe it wasn't built for vehicles. However, vehicles do drive up there and it's starting to fall apart. So just wanted to point that out.
Michelle, I'm sorry,
Sure.
we can't entirely see where your mouse is moving. That's okay. Are you referring to this driveway in terms of the one that vehicles
Yes.
go up and down?
Yes, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. So just to circle back on projections and reimbursement, I did want to show you kind of how I'm grabbing students. So for different configurations for each school, I'm going to grab different years. For instance, your 3 to 6, your highest in the 8-year window is 2027 to 2028. So I'll be using that number. If I'm looking at a K through 2, I am grabbing 208 students in 2031 to 32. If we're looking at the entire population, I'm grabbing the 2023 numbers. And then when we look at
2030.
I'm sorry, yes.
Yep, that's okay.
Thank you. And when we look at 2 through 6 together, we're going to grab the 2033. Okay. I also just wanted to point out this, the space standards. So they changed in September. This was my first time using the new version here. And I kind of got it wrong the last round. In the past, the last one we were using gross square feet. They've changed it to net. So the numbers I presented to you last week were based off of gross. So all of a sudden I'm going through it and realize, oh my gosh, we can get some better numbers here because we're basically taking the exterior walls out of the formula. So I had to run that number, but I also have to run the gross number when we're estimating, because when we estimate, we want the entire building, you know. So you're gonna see a variety of numbers. I wish they kept it gross so I can use the same number, but it's gonna keep changing, basically. So just to circle back, Bakerville, using the net square feet number that I was supposed to, it actually brings your reimbursement. You get 90.78% of it, so it turns your reimbursement to 41.5. And this is based off of Bakerville for 110 students based on the projections. New Hartford, you get 67.29% of your reimbursement, so the number would be 30.76. Antolini, you get 65.88 of the number, so your reimbursement is 30.11. And then,
Michelle,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can you remind me and maybe other people in the crowd, if they don't remember, what the difference, like what you're taking out between the gross and the net from a square footage perspective?
Sure, it's, so strictly net to gross, we're taking out the exterior walls. So I'm measuring to the inside. That's how the state's gonna calculate your square footage. It's what you're using in the building.
Okay,
But like I was saying, when I estimate, I need to go all the way out.
Yep.
So I'm using two different numbers. So for Antolini here, the 58,177 is to the exterior.
got it.
To the inside, it's 53,445.
Okay,
So that's your difference.
thank you.
No problem. This next form I just wanted to share with you all. It's a state form for doing a renovate as new project, which we've talked about before, and which we're kind of calculating for most of these options. I know there was some questions on why would we explore new construction. We have to. That's what this is telling us. Basically, we have to have a professional estimate that evaluates the renovate as new and new construction to show that it is the most cost-effective solution. All right, so now we'll look at potential configurations. This is the map that M&P Planning put together, showing kind of the dots of your student population and the 3 schools. So we have some preliminary conceptual options to talk about. Option A is going to be all about maintaining your existing configuration. We have 3 schools as they are. Let's see what we can do with them. Option B, we're going to combine pre-K2 into 1 school at an existing site. Option C, we'll combine them into a new school on a newish site, or a theoretical site even. Option D, we have 1 district-wide school, pre-K through 6 school. Option E, we look at 2 schools, a pre-K1 school, and moving 2nd grade into Antolini. I want to explain that these are very preliminary. They have not been fully vetted. They're high-level planning scenarios, rough order of magnitude costs. We need to hone in on them even more, look at scheduling, how they all work, see how additions can fit, increase parking, increase play areas, all the kind of components that we need to look at. So there's no drawings, we're really in just kind of a mathematical formula here. So option A, maintaining existing, we have 4 different options to kind of explore. A1, we just addressed those facility conditions. This is where I roll in your reimbursement now so you can understand the reimbursement you could get on some of those projects. Then we'll explore renovate as new. Then we'll explore renovate as new with additions that improve the programs. And then let's compare that with new construction. So this is kind of the typical format I'll be presenting in. Option A1, maintain existing school structure. At the top there, you'll see I have facility conditions total. That was 12.7 at Bakerville, 13.4 at New Hartford, and 12.8 at Antolini. I figured out all the projects that would get reimbursement, and I apply that percentage that I just shared with you, the revised ones. I give you your anticipated reimbursement, and then your town share is kind of the number in green that we focus on. Bakerville would turn to 9.2. New Hartford would turn to 10.3. Antolini 9.6, for a total anticipated town share at 29.3 million to address just all the issues, keeping the schools essentially as they are.
Michelle, when you're talking about addressing the conditions at the schools for this, is this like all 4 tiers of conditions?
Yes, it's
Okay.
everything. I just took that main number we had, remember how I flagged kind of items that would get reimbursed? And then I totaled those up, applied the reimbursement to that.
Hey, Michelle, question from Carrie. Did you, within the existing conditions, did we revise the oil tanks?
Yes.
Cool.
Those numbers are in there. So option 2, maintain existing school structure but renovate as new. So that's essentially taking your buildings down to the walls, you know, keeping the structure, but you're building the infrastructure new, all new materials. You can reconfigure spaces. You can put up new walls to separate shared rooms that aren't working. We can, you know, make major improvements within the facility itself. No additions, aside from Bakerville. Bakerville, we cannot certify the portables for another 20 years, so we could never include them in a renovate as new. So Bakerville, we are including a portable demolition and then adding that back, and so we can build some classrooms to make up for that. So the Bakerville total anticipated cost is 16.8 million. With reimbursement, it would be 9.8 million, and I'm just rounding here. Okay. So that's for 110 students there. New Hartford, the total would be 19.9 million. With reimbursement, it would be 13.7 to the town. Antolini would be 49.4. With reimbursement, it would be 34.56. And that's the sheer size of the building applied with the math. So you can see how the number increases as the building increases. So the total to the town would be 86.2 million, but with reimbursement, the anticipated town share would be 58.2. Now we're looking at addressing some of the programming. So I came up, I have spreadsheets going on in the background that you're not seeing where I'm tallying up program and trying to see how big these additions need to be. And then I actually just equalized Bakerville and New Hartford to roughly the same size. So I'm taking the same approach at Bakerville where we have to rebuild the main classrooms, but we're also adding on for some programs. So we have a 15,000 square foot addition going in and 6,000 at New Hartford, but the size is equal in the end. So the Bakerville total is at 27.3 million, and with reimbursement, it would be 20.3. So that reimbursement went down because the building grew larger than the space standards. New Hartford, we're adding 6,000 square feet. The total is 25.9 million. With reimbursement, it would be 19.7 to the town. Antolini. So here, I did take the approach of maybe moving central office into the building to utilize some of the space at the end of the hall here.
The Oak Hill.
The Oak Hill classrooms that were open. That way, you know, they can all be, all the central offices together. You can kind of confine them together, secure it from the rest of the school so their visitors aren't interloping into your school. So they are included in that number. It totals 49.4 million. With reimbursement, it would be 33.8. So the total of this town share would be 73.9.
Can I ask why we have to have the same square footage for both those schools, Bakerville and New Hartford Elementary?
Well, it's roughly, you're having the same classrooms, roughly the same population. So I just kind of went with it to equalize them.
Okay.
What's
Okay.
the program that we're addressing with this option?
With the Bakerville and New Hartford?
Yeah.
So some of it's improving the cafeteria, kitchen, special ed, and I can give you more specifics as we hone in on it. I don't have it, again, I didn't put the spreadsheet out there, but roughly those are the main things.
So those things that we discussed last week,
Exactly,
based on what came back from the admin team.
yes.
Michelle, backtracking to the Bakerville options of A1 and A2, I find it interesting that the demolish and rebuild is roughly the same price looking at just maintaining existing, is that just based on reimbursement for the rebuild?
It is, because you're, on your A1, you're not getting reimbursement on every single item. So not all of them are eligible for reimbursement, only some, so your reimbursement is much smaller.
Interesting.
Yeah, you're only getting about 3.4, 3.5. And then here you're getting 7. Okay, so option A4 is maintain existing, but we're gonna demolish them and build new. You know, it's again, just a formula we have to kind of look at. So I have to include the demolition of each school. I have to include new construction, which then is reduced reimbursement. So Bakerville, it would be a total of 20.3 million. Anticipated town share would be 12.9. New Hartford would be 25.7 million. With reimbursement, it would be 18.8 million. Antolini, to rebuild it, would be 63.9 million. With reimbursement, it would be 47.13 to the town. The total to the town is 110 million, and then 78.8 with reimbursement. So
And this is getting back to the existing square footage, no additional square footage for programming like.
yes, I was just replacing it. It's replacement costs. So it's really more to compare that with the general renovate, isn't it? So here's just a little summary, kind of stacking them up against each other. So you can kind of look at the options. Obviously, the least amount is just addressing your facility conditions. It doesn't give you nearly as much as the other options because you're leaving a lot of things in place. And yes, so see, I did capitalize some. It wasn't the full program, and I will share that more with you. I didn't put, you know, the 6,000 or 7,000 square feet of special ed, but I did a good increase, and I can share more detail about that with you all. Okay. So now option B, combine pre-K2 into one school in the existing site. So we'll look at what happens when that moves to New Hartford, what happens when that moves to Bakerville. There'll be 208 students at this school. So this is the program I did develop based off of all of the conversations I had, what I presented last time, but I kind of built a school out of it, applied, you know, our circulation factor to it, put all the components that we had discussed at most of the sizes we talked about. So this is really more of a theoretical school. As I apply it to New Hartford and Bakerville, it would change a little, but I just kind of wanted to do this. It does bring the total to 52,000 square feet, and it would be a reimbursement of 25.04. New construction would be 21.92. So we'll be revisiting this more throughout. But option 1B, New Hartford, renovate as new with additions to meet enrollment and program. So I am giving you two options here. On the left, I'm showing you if we brought it to the state space standards and maximized your reimbursement. However, it will not hit the program that we're looking for. But that would be a $29.4 million project. With full reimbursement, it would be 15.9 to the town. And on the other hand, if we pursue the program that we desire to meet all of the needs at 52,830 square feet, it would be a $49.3 million project with a 27.27% reimbursement on that, bringing the total to 35.8. So Bakerville, we're taking the same approach, but again, we have to demolish those portables, bring in, so their addition's a little bit bigger. So the space standards, it totals at roughly $30 million. With the reimbursement, it would be 16.3. And then if we built that to the program at 52,830 square feet, it would be 50,740, I don't know how I'm going, 50.7 million, sorry. And then reimbursement, it would be 37.2 million to the town. So we have a couple options and I just kind of wanted to stack those against each other. You know, Bakerville, since we have to add the addition, it becomes a little more expensive, but they're pretty close because we're talking about the same size. And then in this option, just to look at a big picture, I included the range of Antolini with it too, either just addressing the facility conditions on one end or renovating as new on the other. So you can kind of see where the range of this option could fall. So again, it really becomes a decision about, can we add all the program that's desired into these schools? So option C is combine pre-K2 into one school, new construction. So again, that program is important. What I'm trying to point out here is that we're looking at different reimbursement for new construction. So theoretically, I have seen in the past, there was a study that showed possibly adding a school up at Antolini, up on the hill there. So I thought, oh, we could use that. Otherwise, we're kind of talking about a theoretical site. I don't know what land you all have available for a school, but a campus setting is a great attribute to have. So I thought, let's explore this. So a new school here again, at the space standards of 28,655, you would spend 30.6 million with 18.3 to the town. New school at the size desired to meet program would be 55.3 million with bringing it 43.2 to the town. So that's just, again, I'm just trying to show a summary, a total, again, bringing Antolini back into the picture. Again, either addressing the facility conditions on the lower cost end or renovate as new on the higher cost end. So this option could be anywhere from 28 to 77.7 million.
Yeah, hold on, Penny has a question. Hold on. Penny, you'll need to unmute. Sorry, Penny, try again. You'll need to unmute in order to speak.
Let me do this. Now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. The question I had before, at one point, they had talked about adding a second floor to New Hartford Elementary. Is that out of the question?
You know, I wish it wasn't out of the question because I don't exactly know how we're going to be able to add 30,000 square feet to the building. But with pre-K through 2, it's really hard to have a second floor because pre-K through 1 can't be on the second floor. So we'd be building a second floor just for second grade, which doesn't seem that cost effective to build an elevator, deal with the structure of adding on to an existing building. So I could possibly explore it, but I don't think it's going to be a great option.
If you got rid of the courtyard and didn't have that courtyard, then could you put on a whole second floor?
Well, we still would have the same problem with the current grade structure, pre-K through 2. And we can't really completely fill in the courtyard because then we'd be eliminating daylight to a lot of the classrooms there. And we have to maintain daylight. It's actually a requirement.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so this next slide, I just kind of wanted to compare C and B together because we're talking in the full size at the program, 52,000 square feet. To renovate as new Bakerville to that size, it's going to be 37.2 million. To renovate New Hartford, it would be 35.8 million. And to build a new school, it's 43 million. So the costs aren't as far off as you would think, I personally feel, but I get, you know, another 5 to 7 million is something, but yeah.
So, but these, building the new school, that's just the construction, that doesn't include the land?
It would only, it doesn't include purchasing any new land.
Right, so if we needed to purchase something.
I did include 2.5 million for site development on top of that, assuming we need to build a road and get infrastructure up there, septic, storm, all that stuff. So option D is one district-wide elementary school at Antolini, 449 students. So again, I worked in the background on a spreadsheet at bringing everyone here about what size would we need, and I came up with 21,750 square feet to add on to this school. So the anticipated project cost would be 71.2 million. That would include renovating as new the existing building, reconfiguring it whatever way we needed to, and adding on to the school. We have reimbursement of 37.99, and the anticipated town share would be 44.1. This also does incorporate central office here. So you're all, the entire school system's all together, and also, this into Oak Park and secure from school, yeah, okay, yep, that's it.
Would that price also include bringing over the superintendent from the town hall and all his people?
It includes bringing them over and giving them a space here, but not addressing a space there or anything. Yes.
But then it doesn't include the price for new computers, desks, chairs?
Actually, our numbers typically do include furniture with it. Typically with these projects, there is a whole new furniture package that goes on.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
What was the total square footage again?
So the total, I have it broken up right now, but it's existing is 58,177. The addition is 21,750. Doing the math on the fly. All right, so now we'll look at option E. 2 schools at pre-K, so one is at pre-K through 1, and then we're moving all the second graders over to Antolini. So we'll have 149 students in your pre-K through 1 and 300 students in your 2 through 6. So this, we renovate as new. I'm giving you, again, numbers with space standards and numbers to meet some of the program. I didn't get all of it in because I think, which I could relook at and get more in, but I was trying to give you, I don't know why I did that exactly. Trying to remember. So the existing building at 23,405, we can only add on 600 square feet if we really want to meet these space standards. So that's all I added. It would total at 20.49 million. To the town, it would be 11.1 million. If we add more program to that, to increase that, it would be 30.7 million with a 32% reimbursement rate, and it would be 20.9 million to the town. If we move second grade, can keep central office as is, because we can't fit them in here now, it would be 49.45 million. To the town, it would be 31.9. So this ranges between 43 million to 52 million.
So it's gonna cost 31 million to move one grade.
Well, this is renovate as new. It's renovate as new, just with a better reimbursement because you have 50 more kids in the building.
The reimbursement doesn't fluctuate that much.
It does. It's not huge.
No.
I mean, it only hurts as it goes down. I mean, it does, but it wasn't huge. Okay, so now E2, we're going to explore this going to Bakerville. So Bakerville is your pre-K through 1, 149 students there. If I want to meet space standards, we can only add 8,738 square feet in the lower model. It would cost 20.5 million, and it would be 11.1 to the town. If we renovate as new and add some program back in at an addition of 20,396, it's going to cost the town 32.2 million. With reimbursement, the town share would be 22.3 million. Antolini, this one I did add central office in. What if central office was added on? So there's a 4,000 square foot addition. Just to show some variety, I don't know if that's desired, but it would be 53.4 million reimbursement of 34.7. The town share would be 34.8 million. So your total with all three schools would be either 46 million to 57 million.
So what does incorporate life skills mean?
So life skills was one of the program items we talked about. Those are kids out of districts to bring them back in.
So,
We'd really like that class here. So I need them to have a classroom. So I couldn't, second grade as they move in, need almost all the extra space. So I would need a little more for them. So I just wanted to highlight that.
so is this the only option that includes that, or do all the other options?
A lot of options do include that, especially the ones where second grade isn't moving in because there's space, there's some space.
Okay.
So here's a summary I started to put together, but then I realized it's just crazy and you can't read it all. But I still wanted to kind of just put it out there. But then I kind of summarized it to what's the most kind of robust that hits the mark of each of the options, because I know I gave you a lot of variations, and just to sort of compare apples to apples. So A3, that was your renovate as new for all your schools in their existing configuration. I kind of added up, 457 students. There's 116,927 square feet between all the buildings. And that town share total was 73.9. B2, you have two schools now. So you have 208 students at either Bakerville or New Hartford. I took the highest number just to kind of work with. Antolini, we're renovating as new for 249 students. There's a little bit less square footage in this model at 110,947, and it's 71.8 million. So it didn't change too much. Option C 1.2 was grades 3 through 6 at Antolini, and then the new school, the theoretical new school at 52,000 square feet. It would bring your total to 110,947 square feet again, because it's the same square footage, yeah. So, and that would be 77.7 million. If we look at option D, one school, pre-K through 6, it's a total of 79,876 square feet, and that town share total is 44.15. Option E 2.2, that's your grades pre-K through 1 at one of the schools. That town share total is 11.1. Antolini at 62,000 square feet, that was the more robust option, at 34.8 million. That brings your town share total to 46 million. So really the next steps for me are to test fit these sites. I can't promise that each option I'm talking about actually works just yet. I'd say the most ones I'm concerned about are both New Hartford and Bakerville. Adding that much square footage on is going to be a challenge, and it's going to take away play area, parking area. It's going to be hard to fit everything on. In sites like this, we also include like storm retention today. So fitting, it's just a lot of space to continue to take up. So test fitting is definitely where I need to go, but also phasing and occupancy. How can we build these and remain operational? Like renovate as new in an existing building that's occupied, we usually phase and they work on pieces at a time. Time is money. It adds some cost to it. So I can start to think about how long would that take and add some escalation to those numbers and see what that does. Sequencing of construction and all of that. Cost and reschedule refinement. I have reached out to a CM that works on a lot of schools, and I'm looking at them just to confirm my numbers per square foot. I just kind of want to get a check from them, so I'm waiting on that. They're supposed to get to me shortly. Oh, I'm sorry, a construction manager.
That's okay.
So a GC is a general contractor, and they do smaller projects. Big school projects are done by a CM.
Thank you.
No problem. Then I'm not saying tonight that we need to narrow it down to 1 to 2, but ultimately it should be narrowed down to 1 to 2. As I kind of leave you all, it should be at 1 to 2. So
When you're
that?
saying, I'm sorry, when you're saying 1 to 2, 1 to 2 suggestions only?
Yeah, I have concluded many studies where they leave all the options on the table and no one's made a decision and it takes a long time to get there. it's best when you're bringing your town in, you're bringing all these people in. It's best if you can at least hone in on 1 to 2 options in the end. I don't think you have to make a final decision or anything, but that's practice.
So when we're sending out our survey, we're only giving them 2 suggestions as to.
That's not what I meant. I
Okay,
think
I'm sorry.
you can keep it as open as you want to all of these options. You guys can, as a committee, narrow it down if you'd like. I am not pushing you to do any of that tonight, or, we can go at your pace.
When you mentioned the life skills classrooms at Bakerville, does that include keeping the modulars or getting rid of the modulars?
Well, first, the life skills would only be at Antolini. That was a decision that was made already. It only makes sense here. But at Bakerville, we would remove the modulars because we can't certify them for 20 years. And part of any renovate as new or big project, you need to certify everything's gonna last for 20 years.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
In terms of the work you need to do to understand feasibility of all these options, part of this process has been you've needed to look at some options like building stuff as net new for the purposes of like the state and the forms. When you are looking at feasibility, do you have to include some of those like full net new buildings as part of the feasibility piece, or is it enough to have the data that we have right now regarding the cost of like building as new to like meet the requirements of whatever needs to happen?
I think we're pretty much there with what they need. It's really just a cost evaluation, and we're there. I mean, there might be some refinement, and I would want that included, but we're close to that.
So these are physical costs that would be involved in making the physical changes to these buildings. But then the ongoing things we would look at would be any staff changes or economies of scale that we would achieve by going down to fewer buildings.
Yes, I mean, from my perspective, since, your librarian is moving from each school, you already kind of have the one librarian. I don't know that I can't answer that. That's to your administration really, but it seems like you'd still have close to the same amount of staff. Just from my perspective.
So, but that's part of the objective though, is to look at cost efficiencies, not just in construction, but in operations. So somewhere along the line, we need to come up with some rough estimates to see if there's savings ongoing of 1 or 2 options versus other options.
Yeah, I don't typically get into staffing though. That's not something we typically do, but we could probably work with your administration to look at that, I'm
Are you
sure.
talking about just the ongoing maintenance of buildings, like just for
No, I'm
simplicity?
not talking about maintenance.
I'm staffing, I agree with staffing pieces, but then also there's the maintenance for operating costs of.
Yeah.
Three
I mean,
versus two.
obviously less buildings.
Yeah.
Also, I'll point out that I do not believe, I tried to look, there is not an existing school in Connecticut that is 2 to 6. I do not believe. But it's not a typical configuration, but I know it was discussed. And if you do recall, 400 to 450 is the average size. So that's why I felt it was definitely worth looking at one school, just because that's in that mark.
All right, so back to these school sites. So Bakerville school site. We also should note that, there's no public water. We've talked about this,
Yes,
but
yes.
these are other challenges. No sprinklers in the building. We understand if we do expand, we would have to put sprinklers in.
Yeah.
And without public water or sewer, there's no fire water supply.
Yeah.
New Hartford, there is public water. Public sewer is coming. It's not there yet.
It's not.
No.
We have that in our notes, okay. So then I'm not showing that accurately. There is a septic out there.
And there's fire hydrants there. And I had that as a question is, you know, on the expansion of the site, would that structure support a second floor? But it's not even worth exploring with, if it's only gonna be for second grade.
It would be a small,
Because this whole thing is a floodplain.
yeah, I saw that it's in the.
There's no room for expansion except the courtyard. And I was thinking, you know, you might be able to get, like I think I mentioned to you before, next to the gym, maybe a little bit, there's a little corner.
Yeah, the black is the kind of the setbacks that I'm trying to show, so there's not much room, but yeah.
Oh, where
Yeah.
the tank is right now, Marcia?
What?
Where the tank is right now? Is that what you?
Yeah, the oil tank.
Yeah.
Which is gonna come up.
Exactly, yes, that's come out anyway,
Yeah.
that's that little space.
Yeah, like right there.
You were referring, just for folks who are,
It's up-
this,
That's all it, the circle right there.
yeah, right, or the little tank, this little space right here behind the setbacks, that's what you were.
Yeah, that's it. So there's really not much room for
Yeah.
expansion. If you have to close in the courtyard, couldn't you leave some space for daylight?
I think you could fill in about half of it before you would completely enclose a classroom. You could do about half.
Okay. At Antolini, we've been working on a survey up there, and there is 97 acres total. And roughly 21 acres is for the school site, and the rest are deemed Antolini Woods as a park. So it's not just available right now for school, but that's not to say we couldn't work on something like that.
Okay.
Our GIS mapping will be updated once we got that.
Okay, that's what this is.
I understand, I looked at
Okay.
it, I was wondering where that came from too, and I went to the GIS mapping.
Which again
There's-
is high level site assessment.
I know.
This is,
Yeah, no public water and sewer are up there. Yeah, so all the challenges are, where are you going to put any expansion? I don't think you can expand greatly at any one site. I'm always, I'm confused by these space standards. On one hand, you're telling us we have too much space.
The space standards don't align with program. That's kind of what I was trying to.
But then the last one, I think in E or D, you said E1, we could add 600 square feet to New Hartford Elementary to meet space standards.
Because now there's 150 kids there, so the population changes.
Okay,
The space
all right,
standards
that makes
change.
more sense.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. Extra notes. Yeah, so for Bakerville, for A3, you're gonna go from, what's our existing at Bakerville?
At Bakerville, this existing square footage is 18, but I have to take away, I think it was, I take away around 5,000.
For the portables, and then you
Plus or
add,
minus for the portables.
and then you add back.
Yes.
So for 29,405.
That's 8.3, you said?
Yeah, A3. On B1, option B1, New Hartford Elementary renovated to new with additions to meet new enrollment program. You're just coming up with additional square footage we would need to meet space standards for the students, but we have no idea how many classrooms we would need for option 1 or option 2.
I do know how many classrooms. Again, I have spreadsheets on classrooms,
Okay.
and then I start to take the existing and add on what I think it needs, and that's why it's quick
Okay,
thoughts.
so in these classrooms in your spreadsheet,
Yeah.
Are they our existing size classrooms? Are they the space standards classrooms?
So even though I shared that spreadsheet, I didn't use this truly for New Hartford or Bakerville, because I take the existing spreadsheet that I've shared with you on each school, and then I start adding on. And I start thinking, oh, the media center could be the music room. And I start to kind of move things around. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking about stuff like that as I do.
I mean, that's what we really need to see. Because a lot of these numbers really don't mean much to us right now. All these millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? Because a lot of it underlying is the work from the conditions report. A lot of it was HVAC, a lot of it was asbestos. And I still want to explore if an energy performance contract will help us with any of that. Because I'm not going to put forth in front of the townspeople, pony up $70 million or $50 million, or maybe not even $20 million. That's where I'm at right now. I don't mind spending money, that makes sense. This town is not a rich town. The student population is not going to greatly increase. What, in 10 years, we get 20 students, something like that on the average? Right? So my thoughts are, I'm gonna spend time focusing on what do we need to do to move second grade up here to Antolini? We need information on bus routes, on lunch waves, how's this all gonna work? We should be exploring shared services.
What do you mean by that?
There's a shared services program that the other 3 towns use in our regional school system, but we don't. And we keep getting told, well, you know, way back when, we found out it wasn't gonna save us any money. But let's look at that again.
Can you elaborate on what the shared services program is?
Instead of, you know, they provide special needs services in-house rather than what they can take care of. I'm not an expert on shared services, on everything that they do. That's why I think we need to explore it. But I do know that the other 3 towns, you know, Barkhamsted, Norfolk, and Colbrook use that. Why aren't we?
I've just never heard the phrase before, so I wasn't sure what the shared services was in reference to.
Okay, it's like a company. It's kind of like at Advanced.
Got it.
I'd like to explore the cost savings for bringing back some outplacements. We understand, you know, that could be a benefit, these life skills. What did you say, 1 room we could do for life skills room?
8 students to 1 room, yeah.
So what would the savings be for that?
I believe it was about 200,000 a student. But you have 4 students.
That's the
That's a
outplacement
variable
cost.
savings.
Is that with the
That's-
transportation?
I'd have to confirm, that's the number I was told.
But then we'd have to get staffing for it too here. They won't be outplaced, but then we have to get staffing too.
Right, and the savings will be variable, right, based on the population in town at any given moment that
Yeah.
would take advantage of those, so it would be a fuzzy savings number, I
Yeah.
think, more so than almost anything.
Gotta look at it. I mean, if we're gonna invest money in a life skills room, I wanna know what's gonna be our savings to offset that. And if we do, I mean, you know, we could get maybe someone to give us information on that energy performance contract, and if that's something that's feasible, and that's something that we wanna go down on, then the rest of the stuff, maybe we create a project list of what we really need to do, because we're not doing all of that construction that's being recommended. There's no way I would recommend that to this town. So we need to pick through it, what we need, what is necessary. Yeah, look, have an eye to the future, but I'm in no way in favor of doing all of that work.
With the life skills rooms that we have, or that they're proposing that we have, won't they change from year to year? I mean, it's not going to be the same this year as it will be next year or the year after when they're Wouldn't those children change? Or the costs change?
The population using those rooms will fluctuate. It'll still probably be like a reasonably small, I mean, it's hard to speculate in terms of like what that population will be, but I think the administration can give good guidance on like the number of rooms we have needed for the past several number of years. And, you know, again, we know that we want to plan for a little bit. If we were to go down that road, we'd want to plan for a little bit of extra room so that we can accommodate increasing things. And again, there's a point of like, if there is extra room that we don't need, if possible for us to sell that space to somebody else.
Or we might need it
Right.
for our
That's
own
what I'm saying,
classrooms, right? And if there's not a significant savings for bringing outplaced kids back in, and we need it for other classrooms, then we'll use it for other classrooms. That's why I want to know what are we looking at for potential cost savings.
Mm-hmm.
But how many children are we actually referring to that we might bring back into, back into town instead of sending them out of town and paying for them at another school?
I was told there are currently 4 students, but they would open it to a total of 8 students, and you could bring other students possibly in.
But are those other students from within
Other
our-
towns.
Other towns.
So they would be paying a tuition?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any reason that we need to have a pre-K class? Is it a state law that we have pre-K in our school system, or can we just do K through 6?
Required.
We're required to have some level of pre-K.
Okay.
Penny, my thought too is that we really only need 2 sections of pre-K. But that's not even something that we need to talk about tonight, but those are my thoughts.
I realize that, and I'm trying to think when we started pre-K back many years ago, when I was on the board with Jen Zenu, and we just talked about having pre-K, I don't believe that we talked about having more than 1 class of pre-K, and that was a proposal that we gave to the Board of Ed at that time to get it started. I don't think it was our envision to have multiple pre-K rooms.
So understand where we were in terms of perspective for today, and agree it's a separate conversation, but just to help note, there have been many structural changes that have happened since that time. And so based on the current and projected IEP students in the pre-kindergarten age group, which starts by state law at age 3, and then extends further than in recent years because it changed to kindergarten entry, which means there's more time and in turn more kids. And many of the IEP kids actually do 3 years of preschool, which is all state mandated. And so at approximately 15 students, IEP students, and then also looking at a inclusive classroom, and the district ratio is roughly 35% IEPs and 65% general education. And so you get, based on the IEP needs, the intensity, and the classroom ratios, you actually end up going pretty quickly from 2 to 3 classrooms. And so I know there's a separate conversation about funding and tuition and whatnot, but there are some actual educational state requirements that do put us into that 3 pre-K classroom. And so, I would bring in Jeff and Michael to talk more about that with us, but I don't think that we can unilaterally say that it can be only 2, given the actual structural changes and student needs by the state requirements.
Okay, thank you.
And these space standards are based on classrooms of 20 and 25, correct?
The
varies
space
by
standards are, yes, it's like 124 per person type of thing.
And that's not something that we really are pushing for in this district. Our townspeople don't want 25 kids in a classroom. So how would that affect everything?
I honestly don't think it will affect anything that much, because the population isn't that drastic that you'll save so much space by making the classrooms 25, I could run those numbers, but right now I had to just run them to the class sizes that the town dictates. So it's different per grade. I think it is 25 though, for 3
18.
through
You put the
6.
space in, we have different,
18, 20, 25.
per the, sorry, what?
18, then 20.
Are you going off of our policies?
Yes.
But that's not what we have now. We don't have those kinds of, we might have 18. Right?
What do you mean? In terms of the population right now?
What our
No,
classroom
but
sizes
we,
are now.
part of our teacher contracts, like.
I know what the contracts are.
Yeah.
But, we've heard from a lot of parents, they don't want large class sizes. They don't want these large class sizes. And they think that they do well with smaller class sizes. And I had said one of the meetings that was not the intent of this task force, was to consolidate to make larger classrooms. That's not something that we were focused on doing.
Mhm.
So I'm asking the question, how does this get affected if we put in the formulas of lower class sizes?
Well, that is what I'm using. When I figure out how many classrooms you need, I'm using the 18,
Existing?
the 20, and the 25. That's what I'm using. The
You're
state
using-
calculation is
You're using the
completely
established
different.
policy numbers.
Yes.
Yes.
I understand all that, I
Yeah,
do. So we have,
These are the numbers that are in this presentation right now are very like high level flags as some of this stuff, so.
I know it's high level. Now we're starting to hone in, and these are the concerns that we have.
I feel like you're getting a little heated on me right now, so I'm just trying to make sure we're on the same page.
Here's our enrollment class sizes. I don't want to be significantly different than these numbers.
Oh, no.
Well, if we're saying 25, we will be.
So, I guess the way to get the sensitivity analysis here, right now we have 18, 20, and then 25. If we were to, and what we were asking, I think, is if we were to say the cap is 22 or 20 instead of 25,
Right.
would that change? the
You might have to add a classroom, because I know a couple of them were at the threshold of,
That's what,
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
okay, then yes, if you went much less, yes, you would maybe have to add a classroom.
At a classroom per grade?
Per grade, I mean, I can open my last presentation if you want, and I have something in there.
Would that be at the high end?
I'm just off my memory, when I did my classroom counts, there was a couple grades that, was 60 students, so when I divided by 20, you have 3 rooms and you need that 3. A lot of them end up being 2.3, 2.5, and I round up, so those rooms are gonna be broken up and be much less. But, yeah,
But you said in the beginning of the presentation tonight, you took the highest numbers, highest combinations.
Yes.
Highest capacity,
Yes.
yeah. So that's.
that's when I'm applying the space standards though more, what I was referring to tonight. But in my program spreadsheets, I figure out how many classrooms you need for that population for each
But you
one.
still use the highest capacity that we projected out until 20.
I use the highest one, yeah.
In our previous meeting, when we were talking about classrooms at Antolini, you only were counting.
Alicia, I just not to interrupt you, but in your point, so to connect the dots here between, say, what Alicia is saying, and so I'm looking at the table here, and then if I'm just doing a quick scan, but say grade 6 in the yellow, 67. So 67 is less than 75, so therefore
So
fitting a 3.
yeah.
Would that mean that we have 3 classes of 22, 22, and 23 students in that, and, over 20 there? And so the question you're asking is that gonna be, are these
Acceptable or not?
acceptable or not?
It's, and it's hard to be such finite with,
I guess if we're looking
through
at,
all of the sections, right, with all the grade levels, all the sections. You can have a total number of students, but then you gotta look, within each
Yeah.
That's why
grade.
you have to,
Yeah.
Does it fall?
yeah, and then up here, there's 72, so if that, and this is near term, so it'd be,
Okay, so that's one,
maybe
either you're gonna have a big class that year, or you gotta build a whole other
Yeah.
classroom.
Right. Okay.
So are you asking to help with this are you asking for,
Well, I think.
is it a check or a change?
No, I think what she alluded to is if you stick with something like this, an existing, and we're gonna compare it to what she's suggesting for classroom totals, yeah, we might need to add another classroom or two, which, brings me to a point of, we have to make sure, first and foremost, we have to educate the kids that we need to educate, right? So if we have to outplace and leave them outplaced, and we need those classrooms for classrooms, then we need those for classrooms. But I was wondering why for Oak Hill classrooms, you only pulled in 2 full-size classrooms and not 3.
Because there's only 2 full-size ones.
But they were renting 3 classrooms? They were renting 3
One of them's
classrooms.
being used. One of them has something in it.
But I don't think it says a classroom.
I can't recall off the top of my head, but I don't know. It's because it's a half a class, so it's not, because it's the room, I think, with the movable wall.
Yeah, first
Or something.
Smaller.
Yeah,
It's about half size.
yeah, there was only 2 full size that I could bring over,
Okay, well, it's a space that could be used
which is,
for something. Even if it's not a classroom, it could be used for,
oh yeah, absolutely.
intervention or whatever.
That's what it is right now.
Okay, I think I made all my points for tonight. I don't know how you want to handle honing down, what you guys want to look at.
I mean, one of the things that we would also have to look at, and you mentioned this, Alicia, is if we are eliminating the use of one of the school properties, what we would do with that and how any sale or adjustment of that property could be leveraged against the cost of any renovation work we do. I mean, we have to look at the whole picture. That's part of this.
I have a question. When you do your site fits to see, what configurations can fit where, you're looking also so if we were to look at Bakerville, if everything were, those 2 schools combined to there, you'd be obviously looking at the capacity of the septic and the wells and all of that.
I mean, to some degree, I'm not a civil engineer.
Well, no,
by
I know
any
that.
means,
Yeah.
But we would assume they need to be increased, yes.
Okay. And then the same, I don't know too much personally about the sewer and the water contracts or on, downtown. So I don't know what kind of impact if that school population were to increase over there, what that would do on that side for sizing requirements. That's the only questions on there. So yeah, I'm curious to see how your site fits look next.
I am too.
So do you take this now and just try to figure out which one of these are physically possible to do?
Basically, yeah, that's pretty much the next step. We're kind of theoretical at this point here. So yes.
Michelle, this is Penny. If you had to choose, and this is just your views on it, which would be the best school to add on to? Would it be Antolini, New Hartford, or Bakerville?
I believe it's gonna be Antolini. It's not gonna be easy either, though.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said Antolini, but I still believe there's a challenge here, but I think it's less of a challenge than the other 2.
Okay. Even though it's just a well and a septic up at Antolini, and there is water and sewer possibly down at New Hartford Elementary?
Yeah, but if we can't go up and we can't go out at New Hartford, I don't know what I'm doing.
Underground. The basement is very large.
Sure.
So, yeah, I don't know, it's gonna be a challenge.
Okay. Because I know that the survey committee, we are meeting next week to come up with the questions to give to our townspeople to make a choice of what they think we should do with the 3 properties that we do own, or that the town owns that we are using from the town, and what we're going to do with them afterwards. Just curiosity, that's all.
Yeah.
And do you think, after listening to you tonight, could we put everybody up at Antolini if that school was expanded and made into a, I'm trying to think what they did up in Summers, make it like a campus up there? A high school, a middle school, a elementary school?
So are you talking about option D as one school or option C as 2 separate schools?
Make it as 3 schools where you have a small school that goes from pre-K up through, I'm trying to think, what's that, Summers, up at maybe 2nd or 3rd grade. And then the middle school would be 4 through 6, and then 7 through 12 up at the high school.
We're not, we're only really looking at the grades that are in process, that we have control over right now. Penny, I think your question that you're asking is really like the options for consolidating everything up at the Antolini site.
Right. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I should have said pre-K through 6.
The options for consolidating things up at the Antolini site are option C and option D, in 2 different formats. One where option C would consist of potentially like a new building up here for K through 2. And then option D is some sort of expansion onto Antolini to get all K through 6 into
Okay.
one.
Gotcha.
But I'm pretty sure that's what you're asking about, but
I think that's what I meant. I just was getting the 2 towns confused. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Seeing that just, I'm not saying this is the most important, but it's to help continuity of conversation. So if we're looking at C1 dot, on the options comparison summary.
Yeah.
C1.2 and D, is it worth Michelle spending more time on C1.2 versus,
I think it's worth looking at.
no, versus D? Would you,
I'm
I'm not saying that, not the idea, but like for saying for Antolini, is it worth just, I'm not trying to make a judgment, just like if it's almost 80 versus 44, and those are the 2 options to bring everyone here, is it worth spending more time? Is there other reasons, given that $30 million gap, it's worth?
only if you are all still interested in keeping 2 schools for your lower and your upper elementary, you know? You're asking me if you think it's worth option C.
Oh, no,
Is there a
if you're
difference?
saying, if there's an interest in bringing everyone to Antolini.
Yeah.
And then we're also trying to figure out what our options are worth you spending more time on. Is it worth spending more time on C1.2, given that it's $30 million more than option D?
You mean
Well,
more?
I think
But
that,
don't you want it to be less?
Oh, wait a minute, no, but I'm saying, yeah, is it worth spending more time on C1.2, given that option D is $30 million less?
He's saying, should we just focus on
Oh, got
D?
it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think that's more a question for like the task force.
Yeah, that's why I think
Yeah, not necessarily
well, there's
Michelle,
reason,
but.
that she would make the decision, but there's something that we're missing, if saying,
I think they're both viable options.
is there anything that's better about C1.2 versus Benny, if we want?
Well,
these
I
other
mean,
schools?
it depends on your community. I don't know, you know, you're with 3 schools, 100 kids at each school. Is it overload to go to 450 students in a school? Is that what the town would like? That's what I can't answer.
I could anticipate some like concerns that we would want to like address regarding having the full population in one building, having the pre-K kids in with the 6th graders. I know there are concerns about having some of that on a bus, but like, I also assumed that like, if we were looking at renovating to get to that place, that there are ways that we could like structure the school
Well,
where there
absolutely.
would not be overlap of those student populations, but that's something that,
Yeah.
I could
Yeah,
flag.
I have a theory for option D in my head, and I'm hoping it works if I do explore it, if you want me to.
For option what?
D.
Yes.
And you can keep, I mean, pre-K typically, they don't ride the bus, right? You said
No.
bus, no.
They don't
Okay.
have the
No, I
They're
just
gonna have
meant
a
like,
separate
even
drop-off.
like kindergartners in sixth grade,
Yeah,
some people.
no, I get it.
Well, they're on there now.
I understand that, I'm just saying, like, knowing that people sometimes don't put their kindergartners and first graders on the bus because of the mixed population, I can extrapolate that, like, people might be concerned about having them, like, using the same bathroom at schools or something like that, you know what I mean? Just like having a shared space within the school, so from a programming perspective, even if it is all one giant building, how are you accommodating for the fact that right now those populations are served separately, there's not really a lot of overlap, and like, what does that mean from it, again, a day-to-day management of the school, transition within the school, and so on and so forth. So again, something that we would just wanna, like, I agree that I think we should explore that option, but those are some of the
Continue
considerations that will
So
probably,
you're saying continue exploring C1.2?
option D and C1.2. I think of one, I'm interested.
Both in, you're saying?
Oh,
So, Michelle, when you
So-
mentioned earlier,
campus versus one person.
you mentioned earlier today that there are no 2 through 6 schools, but kindergarten through 6
There's a ton of them.
is, yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it is
Yep.
a model out that's
Yeah,
out there.
Yes.
but it's a shift from the way we're serving students right now. And so again, I assume that there are ways that other schools address those things, but we would need to talk about what that would look like in order to get people to understand what the options are. In terms of, John, just to go back to your question regarding, like option C.2 versus like D, you know, I think that some of that is like the cost differential, I think, I need to understand, to your point, a little bit more about the programming, right? So like, if C.2 includes a whole host of programming that like, we don't necessarily want to
that's what-
sign off on, so like, it may not be, the cost differential may not be that high, I'm not
Yeah, if
entirely
that's the
sure
case,
about
yeah, I
that.
was just, it wasn't, that's what probably, like, are we comparing essentially apples to apples of?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, then that's great, we keep both in.
Because I think, yeah, C1.2 has additional space for the programming, and D.
Yes, it's the full programming, that
Right.
spreadsheet that I've shared, and I can go
Yeah.
back to it if you want. It's based off of,
Yeah, that's what's just, yeah, that's what, yeah, thanks. So we should keep it.
oh, what did I do? I went the wrong way.
But we could
This.
do C11 compared to D.
So this is what we would design that new school to in that C 1.2. And, you know, as we design some things, you know, sometimes the number gets better, sometimes it gets worse. You know, this is kind of like the roadmap.
I have a question.
Sure.
When you had met with the admin team, obviously the programming site or the programming needs is what should be done, well, ideally, in an ideal setting, an ideal world. Did they, or is it possible for them, I'm trying not to look at you as I ask this question, to figure out what things on those lists would be better to not have if for space requirements or
Prioritize the
things,
programming.
Thank you, yep.
I can have that conversation with them.
Because just because of the standard sizing that the state kind of makes you fit into that little box. Just thinking about that, because obviously that's a huge cost difference. And so, obviously programming,
Can I also add to that? Because I recall going back to the programming, there was some that was, you know, there would be additional staffing needs to meet all of the ideal programming, not just classroom needs. So the additional classrooms would need additional staffing.
From a
Correct?
perspective,
Yes,
I think my assumption is that the only additional staffing that would be needed would be to bring the life skills program in-house.
No, I think she had more.
I have a little more special ed. I don't, you already have OTPT, they just don't have a room, so you're giving room,
Right, okay, yeah.
Maybe there's, one or two that could be added. I don't know that information.
Got
to
it.
be honest.
My understanding for the special ed, when I was thinking about it and the way that you were planning for it here, was not necessarily like an additional staff, but just like, this is the space that we need, and like the current staff is like using those spaces right now. I was not anticipating a staff increase to just consolidate the space, right? Some of those rooms are, some of those flex spaces where we've got people like moving in and out, or like parents and so on and so forth. We could probably get a closer read on that,
To
but
build off of what Carrie just said, so when you had that meeting and they came up with the ideal programming, that was based upon the ideal programming at each school.
That's how we kind of boiled it down to kind of. hone it.
Okay, so I'd be curious if we're diving in, it looks like we definitely want to get more information on like the whole school type of situation. If that would be a viable option, I'd be curious to see if any of those numbers shift, if it's under one building.
This is
Yes.
staffing or something. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Well,
and
some
I
of
know
them
you
will,
don't
right?
do
So, like,
staffing, but it would be based upon programming,
some of the programming,
if there's like overlap.
Oh,
Yes,
there's
that-
definitely a savings in programming. I
Yeah.
mean, you're not building 3 gyms, you'll
Right.
have one.
Right.
right,
I mean, that's,
right,
Yeah.
some of the programming is about, like the
I mean,
the
that's-
gym space is too small at some of the schools, or like the cafeteria space does like not serve people appropriately, like that falls under programming.
Okay.
So like there would definitely be like efficiencies of cost by putting that into one thing, right? It's not just pre-K and special ed in-house versus out-house, it's all of those other things.
yeah, so in option D, you can see your square footage goes drastically down because of the shared resources.
This versus.
And that's sort of why it trickles into the number,
Okay.
So one of the things that I was realizing in looking at these numbers and these costs is that we are acknowledging deficiencies that will be rectified in any kind of renovation. And yes, they need to be prioritized. To your point earlier, Alicia, in an ideal world, we would love to do everything. We can't always do everything, but we are coming up against real deficiencies that exist in the schools right now. These outside of just the fact that we have 3 buildings that we want to try to build out.
What about the space, for example, if everybody came to Antolini? What would we build?
That's what she's not sure yet.
Right, I kind of have an idea, but I can't tell you yet, I gotta see if it works.
That would be, so
But I
like
think
we asked her, so like,
There's some options here, I think. There's more options here than there are at the other sites.
the feasibility, like she needs to understand the feasibility for all the options, and that's part of it, like whether they're actually.
I can see
Yeah.
New Hartford, we don't have them
Yeah.
at all. And then Antolini is also limited. So here, we have a lot, but difficult.
Well, yes, exactly, the terrain is rough.
So in terms of the point that's kicked around a few times of, the existing facilities and deficiencies, and then it's, there's a question about this, A1 of total's 29.3 million. Who would be part of going through this list for each of the schools and determining what the, I don't know,
Yeah.
red, yellow, green sort of situation, or some sort of triage of so we know it's not that, it's not all 29.3, but is it, is it 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, whatever it is, how do we get to that number as part of the coming weeks?
I think that would depend upon what direction we ultimately wanna go in, on what things we prioritize based upon building new. Obviously new, you wouldn't have to worry about that if you were to build a campus, but renovating, no matter where you renovate, you would have to bring stuff up to be fixed, if you're gonna do it. Obviously, you're not gonna do everything if you don't have to, but I would think if we were looking at building off of this or doing something here, you would end up having to do some of those things anyway.
Saying this differently, I'm sure there are people in town who say, what is the lowest possible option to continue our existing facilities? And so is that lowest possible option, I don't know what the number is, but we have a bottoms up in those reports. And so that's where I'm not saying that is the best option, but I'm saying as an option that given our, there's trade-offs with that, but like what is that cost to bring our buildings to, we can't do nothing, but what is that amount?
So my understanding is that that's option 1A, but the only caveat to that is that option 1A does not account for the fact that we need to do something about the portables,
Correct.
right?
We can overlay that.
Like those can't.
So, and a lot of times people will take districts will take our spreadsheets and just come up with a capital plan and chip away at it as needed. I mean, that's sort of what you were just asking, that's where my mind
Yeah,
goes. It's
I
like,
think there's some items in that report that I think folks like, do we actually need to do that, or is it a nice to have versus need to have? And so if we're saying that if our do nothing, i.e. continue with existing facilities, it costs the town $29.3 million, that's a lot different than it costing 515.
I think we should more deeply explore like the maintained facilities piece, this 29 million one, just to make sure everybody knows what that looks like. With the caveat that right now that does not account for the fact that the portables at Bakerville need to be.
They'll hang on as long
I
as they
think
can.
it's only $500,000. I think we need to combine the portable option of A2 for Bakerville into the maintaining school structure of A1 for New Hartford and Antolini.
Yeah, and then like I would recommend that we just strike A3 and A4 from like exploration for a variety of reasons, in terms of the overall cost for those options, and the fact that, again, we know that, there is a belief that like having fewer overall school buildings gives us some benefit. So the only real benefit to staying within 3 schools is just the overall cost to me. So if it's that even, I'd rather explore other options. Does everybody feel comfortable with telling Michelle not to explore A3 or A4 any further?
Yeah, I did have a question, it's just curious, that I glossed over is on A1 and A2, what is the basic difference between facility conditions and renovate as new?
oh, well, there's a lot.
I know, because there's a lot of money attached to it.
Well, so A1, again, is
It's based on our first,
everything in this book, okay?
that we went over already.
Yeah. A2, we can do a lot. You're gonna do all new materials, everything. You're taking it down to the skeleton of the building and rebuilding it. We're gonna put the sprinklers in at Bakerville, where, it's gonna have everything that was in here and more.
Okay,
We can change configurations, we can put walls up for those shared spaces, we can buy a separator for the gym to separate it, you can, all sorts of things,
okay, I got it.
yeah. But
So-
again,
So just to clarify on that, so the maintaining existing school structure is just updating to code.
by maintaining existing school structure, I'm saying keep a 3-school model, that's what I meant by it.
No, sorry, sorry. A1
A1
versus A2.
So it's the
Yes.
book we gave you.
Yeah.
It's gonna have
It is
everything
all
that-
and to the question I asked earlier, that includes all tiers of recommendations.
it's the full number, includes
Yeah.
all
Okay.
4 tiers.
Okay, perfect.
And
So
then
because some of that did have like fix the gym.
I'm sorry,
safety.
say that again?
So because some of that did have fix the gym safety and things like that in it, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah. And sprinklers?
It has sprinklers, yes.
Yep.
Okay, so that would be, okay.
Now the pricing includes the oil tanks,
Includes the oil tanks.
potential,
Yep.
like options for exploring conversions to other power
Yeah.
sources.
If you're doing A1, the Bakerville, you get a lot more bang for your buck given the grant, the A2 option of Bakerville.
Yeah, those numbers are so close.
Absolutely.
A1 is 9.28, and A2, 9.87, that it's,
Yeah, you definitely, I mean.
it's not my money, but I wouldn't walk away from that. Because it's that close.
That option ought to replace A3 on the summary sheet, so people could see.
Yeah, I can do
Oh,
that,
yeah.
absolutely.
Here's what.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, especially
Yeah,
since,
so Ben, you're saying take the Bakerville of A2, combine it to A1 and put that in replacement of the A3 and the options?
Yes,
Yes.
that's what.
Yeah.
that's-
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for talking about that. Together.
So are we deciding to get rid of all the option As?
No,
Then option A3, A4 are off the table.
Yep.
Option 2 only exists in that we're taking the Bakerville number from that and like combining it. It's like A2 Bakerville and then A1 New Hartford and Antolini is
Right.
basically. what we
it's
want
gonna
to-
be the new A1.2 or whatever, yeah.
Yeah,
So now these prices also do not include the busing?
this has nothing to do with busing, we can overlay that in as we move forward.
Or the lack of buses that we need if we move pre-K someplace else?
Pre-K doesn't take buses.
That's right, they all get brought to school by
Yeah.
their parents, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And we're not discussing what we're going to do with the building should we decide to get rid of it, correct?
yeah,
Not
there
until
yet.
we're there, yeah.
haven't talked about that.
And if we change
But again,
Bakerville,
We
if
can
we,
talk about those options. I want to be very clear again, just to remind everybody who's listening. We can talk about those options and get that information. And we can like consider that. But we as a task force cannot
Right.
guarantee that is what would happen with any of the buildings. I
right,
want to just be very clear that like there is no commitment coming out of this regarding repurposing of the buildings.
Right, we just want options
Yeah.
from Michelle's expertise.
One
That's it.
hundred percent. I just want to say that as often as I need to for anybody who's checking in at any random time.
so say for instance, we should take Bakerville School and make it no longer a regular New Hartford Elementary School, but make it into a Oak Hill School. We would still have to bring it up to date with
Yes,
Yeah,
sprinklers and ADA equipment and all that other stuff. And we would
Correct.
still be responsible for that payment?
yes.
Okay,
If we renovated it as a school, but then rented it out, keep it as a school for 20 years, or we
yeah,
pay
I
penalty.
don't know how the renting to another entity works exactly, I'd have to ask that, I'm not sure.
okay. But what would happen if we rented it out to them and let them do all the renovations? We wouldn't have to be responsible for that money, would we?
That would work.
That to me is like a contingency plan that again, because we can't commit to it,
Yeah.
like, or like guarantee that as part of this task force, it's just not really something
Okay.
that goes too far on the, I understand the point you're making, but it's a little too out there.
Just curious.
Penny, you and I will get on the next task force for that, okay?
No, thank you. After 13 years, I think I've had enough.
You keep saying that, Penny.
One more term.
All right, so a little bit fewer options to explore from that regard.
But how about this, were you interested in C11 and C12, or just C1,
I was,
C12?
I wasn't sure there was an option to, in terms of everyone coming to the Anthony site, I wasn't sure there was if we wanted to have two options for that or just one, and it sounds like there's some trade-offs, so.
So C11 is like C12, but only with not programming space.
Yeah, so you.
Yeah, and I just need to start test fitting it and see where I get, if I
Yeah.
can make it better than the 52,000, great.
If it's
And
keeping the
just
C1
go
two,
from
that's
there.
fine, it's, we're just exploring options.
Okay, all right, okay. All right,
I mean, I think it would really help if with this, the group of the three of us, Samantha, Mary Beth and myself, if we had sort of options to make up our survey with for next week when we work on it.
Well, Penny, our progress with that really has to follow the progress of what happens here.
Okay.
So as this work moves on, we'll be forming what we
Yeah.
need to.
Right. Okay, I just was hoping that maybe I could get some information from the people tonight so when we have our discussion next week, it would be a little more fruitful.
We'll still have a lot to talk about, we'll be fine.
Okay,
So is this what we think we would, this option, it's not gonna be increased, gonna be A2 and then A1?
Yeah, I had the same thing, A2, A1, A1.
Okay.
So just to confirm, everyone has the same new option A. So the new option A is A2 Bakerville for 9874, and then A1 for New Hartford Elementary and Antolini.
Right. So instead of this new option, whatever you designated, it's gonna be built into A2 would be demo of the portables and rebuild. And then A1 facility, conditions.
Oh,
facility.
gotcha, okay.
A2 right here.
And then,
I don't know what we wanna call it.
This
it's
is,
gonna be new, it's an A5, I don't know.
A1 is.
Okay, so A2 at Bakerville.
Yeah.
A1 at
A2 is
Bakerville.
Bakerville.
and Antolini.
And A1 at
Everyone gives outlines of that notes,
got it.
the portables.
This seems like such office days as it is.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that's the least,
Yeah.
That's a lowest
the
cost.
least, the least work done being done, except if we're doing something with the portables, because it's just about the same amount of money
Yeah,
as
exactly.
fixing them up.
Yeah.
Or not.
so could you give me what you just changed everything to? What is A1? It says,
The new option A involves, if you're looking at the options comparison summary detail slide, actually, are you gonna go to that? In your-
Yes. Am I still sharing my screen with the?
how did I do that?
There you are.
Okay.
No, I'm not sharing.
I'm not?
Oh, not on the
Oh, I
screen.
gotta go to the meet, sorry.
No, you're
I'm
okay.
slow with this stuff, alright.
You're fine.
Window, that. Okay, don't.
Coming up, now it's shared, yeah.
Whoop. And. Good.
Do we wanna
You can go
look
back.
at the more detailed one?
The-
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
better
sorry.
For this.
yeah,
If
that's
you can
fine.
see that up there.
Yeah.
So let me see, so, I don't know if I can still go on here. No, that's not the detail.
So, Katie, just the difference between A1 and A2 on Bakerville, A1 was not demolishing the portables.
Yep.
A2 is demolishing the portables and building as new, building new.
It's like, yeah, they would get a little bit more space from a programming perspective.
And the cost difference between them is negligible. So we're not gonna do A1, she's not gonna explore A1 for Bakerville. She's gonna explore A2 for Bakerville.
yep,
And then she'll continue to explore A1 for New Hartford Elementary and A1 for Antolini.
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. Got it.
So is that E5?
I think it should be A5.
A5,
yeah.
I'm trying to, I would like to have, I'd like to see if we want to cut any more of these. I'm trying to understand for us the benefits of learning more about options B1.1 and B2.1, the small additions.
To me, I think that's going to really depend on the site evaluation right, Michelle?
Yeah, can I add 10,000 square feet to New Hartford is the question.
Yeah,
Well, that's why I'm saying B1.1 and B2.1 are just the small additions, like it's not even 10,000 square feet, is it?
New Hartford, I have a 10,000, just under 10.
For the small
And
ones.
Bakerville, I have, gosh, 18,000,
Okay,
but that's because I'm
okay.
replacing the portables again.
Got it. And so basically, if I'm looking at just like, again, all of the options B, and if we were to say, don't bother going down this road, it's not necessarily a don't bother, but it feels like we think that option B1.2 or B2.2, full program additions at either New Hartford or Bakerville, seems like a large hill to climb, given the site
Yeah.
conditions at each place.
It's,
Is that the right way to think about that?
I pretty much agree, unless I'm gonna go up somehow, I don't see that happening.
But we still should have an option that closes one school, consolidates into two schools. I'm gonna say without the programming needs added. And then take a look at the programming needs, like one by one, because the programming needs seems to double the cost of the options. And we should decide which ones we would let in, which ones we would include.
So if we're just looking at, sorry, I don't think I want to ask that question, because I'm not sure what it is. Don't kick me out loud, never. I never quite right.
I guess so if we go back to we're saying that, just to confirm, for B1.2 and B2.2 are both removed?
Just they're saying it's impractical.
Yeah. So then if we go back to our options comparison, B2 has the 37 million number, which is no longer.
I mean, kind of with option B, I should just see what I can do and see where it lands.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that is a better way to see where it lands.
okay.
Like, sure, programmatically the goal is 52, probably not gonna happen, can the 32 even happen? You know, that's kind of, I just have to get into it.
B just needs some more
Okay,
iteration.
so we're gonna leave all of those options in for more.
And I'll probably be showing one for B,
Okay.
you know,
If
each
you
B,
like this,
each
come back
B.
and be like, this is no.
I'm just gonna show you the maximum size we could even get and,
Okay.
you know,
I think it's good to do that because
gotta
it's
see
been
if
a
it-
constant
Yeah.
point of discussion in
Yeah.
town is can we combine these
Yeah.
schools?
Yeah.
So-
yeah, that
Yep.
this is what will answer the question.
Yeah.
yeah, and based on, not to keep comparing the last one, but there was a lot of sensitivity between New Hartford versus Bakerville, so I think knowing the site specs is really key for that conversation, keep both open in terms of review. And then when we look at that, Michelle, can we also make a combination? We kind of have it in here, cost range from option A for Antolini, but we don't have it in the option summary. So if we consolidated as is and then left Antolini as is versus the added programs, doesn't look like that was an option included in this as well.
So kind of take the B and put Antolini with just the facility conditions. Is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah, just as a total option, yeah.
Okay, plus Antolini A, 1.
Yeah.
And then going back to one of Alicia's questions about the state max, again, the consolidation is at that state max as is. So keeping schools as is 25 students, though.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
the classrooms are
Yeah,
programmed
Yeah, okay.
to a max of 25.
Max of 25, yep,
That's only 3 through 6 though.
yep, okay.
Any other combinations or elements that we want to make sure that we are taking into account for the next round of work? Okay. Okay, I think that concludes this portion of the presentation. In which case, I would move on to public comment. Come on up.
Shelley Lloyd, 29 Pioneer Drive. I have 4 things, I'll try to make them very fast. First of all, this would not come into the construction phase of the building or the design phase anyway. But, think about regional, Canton schools, Regional School District 10. They have a wing in their buildings that is for their middle school and then their high school separate. So there's a real easy way to separate your primary school kids from your upper grade kids in terms of just the design of your school. It is not new to have young kids at Angelini. When my kids were here, there were 5 sessions of kindergarten in this building, 3 classes, all half days, 2 full days of sessions in one. And you know what? Everybody managed. The 6th graders and 5th graders came down and helped with the kids. They did reading with them. There's a lot of positives to having older kids in the building too. And I think that we need to spin some of the positive things if that's something that is going to happen. There's an efficiency of instruction. As somebody who traveled, you heard me say this last time, who traveled from building to building. If I didn't have to do that, I could have used that time to see students. And I think that that's important. All right, now I have something that deals with moving from what I believe we're discussing tonight, which is possibility, into the feasibility stage. Is that kind of where we're at, Michelle?
Sure.
I came to the first meeting, I came to the second meeting, I was out of town for a meeting, I read the minutes. I haven't seen anything about a civil or structural engineer looking at any of these sites or buildings. We're talking about changing things in old construction. We don't know what is below the ground, and we don't know what a civil engineer will recommend to a structural engineer that can be done above ground. And I think until we know those things, we're kind of like, we can come up with possibilities, but we can't come up with anything that really is a reasonable thing to make a decision on. We need to know the structures to be able to evaluate this. In your houses, if you're gonna have work done, there's 2 really important things you need to know about. The roof, which you've given us a lot of information about the roofs, and your foundation. Your foundation is what holds up your building. And sometimes an older foundation cannot accommodate some of the newer things that you might want to put in. New windows, way more. They're just a different design. They sometimes way more. Structure can't accommodate them, or you want to put them in a certain place and you can't knock out a wall there. We don't have information about what's unseen, below the ground, your civil engineer, and what's above ground from your structural engineer. So I am waiting for you guys to contract with one and get just their opinion about the sites that you're considering and what the feasibility is for those to actually happen.
Michelle, I know that you guys don't have a civil engineer on team. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I know right now that work is not in scope of what the contract that we have signed. So can you talk about when that usually comes in, or like sort of the way that you think about incorporating that into a process like this?
Sure. Sometimes we do have a civil engineer on studies like this, and I prefer them because I don't like doing site design or any of that. I like it, but am not a civil engineer. I'm not a landscape architect. It's not my forte. However, we've done many studies without them. And really, most of the studies are kind of honing in on what's the right structure for the town, what can fit, how big is it, what's the cost, and then the town can move forward and then hire a civil engineer to really evaluate it, a structural engineer. The last study I was on, they did want to build a floor over the building. I put a big caveat on the study when we kind of cost factored that, and then they did bring a structural engineer in after to do a report. So, and nothing's been done yet anyway in that project, but, so it can happen after. I love when they're on board with us, sure. It's better.
Kate Wagner on Step Hollow Road. I have 2 questions. How many acres of land are up here?
Well, I had it wrong from it said 100 and something.
GIS mapping says 174 acres, but
So there's enough to.
no, wait, let me finish. But we just had a recent survey done that shows 97 acres, so I just want to be accurate. We're showing 97 acres, even though GIS mapping, that was not a survey, was 174.
So there's enough land to expand this building.
There's a lot of ledge, there's a lot of topography, and there's a lot of land that's designated as parkland, which I said, that doesn't mean that we couldn't work with that.
And these numbers that you're throwing out, are they at today's values?
Correct.
So by the time we go to do anything, there'll probably be a 15 or 20% increase in cost.
We're tracking about 6% escalation a year, and usually we want to factor into the midpoint of construction, so that's part of what I will start phasing in as we move forward. For this, we're comparing apples to apples at least, you know?
And do we know who's in charge of building maintenance? Or who would be in charge of, nobody's in charge of building maintenance right now because the buildings are so bad.
It's a Board of Ed responsibility.
Is it the superintendent of schools?
Yes, it's a Board of Ed responsibility to maintain the existing buildings. And there is a subcommittee on the Board of Ed that is dedicated to facilities, management. Again, if the Board of Ed decides not to use a building, then that responsibility transfers over to the town. Additional comments from anybody here, and if you are online and have something that you want to say or share, please raise your hand and we will promote you. Yes, sir.
Zachary Johnson, 182 Gillette Road. So just to bring this really back to layman's terms, is there any possible way to go down this rabbit hole of even consolidating into the schools that are here without having to cost the taxpayers millions of dollars? I know that's always been the big topic of, hey, we want to consolidate to save money, but in all reality, is it going to save anybody money?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, you know, the cheapest option again right now looks like maintaining all of the buildings as they are, with the caveat that like work needs to be done on those buildings. So there is a price tag to that as well. That's my understanding of the numbers that I'm seeing right now.
No matter what, yes, but obviously, it's easier and cheaper to keep what we have instead of jumping down this rabbit hole of, hey, we need to consolidate.
Yeah, except for portables, but yeah.
Correct.
In my opinion, is we could consolidate with some minimal expenditures, notwithstanding the major work that could be done, that would be done anyway, like the boilers, the HVAC. Don't forget, there's a lot of costs involved for switching over from oil to propane. They wanted to put in AC. So there's, I think, a lot of extra stuff in here that really needs to be evaluated. So we're looking at a lot of dollars that I think is way too high. But I agree with you guys. I'm looking for the cheapest way to be cost efficient and still educate our kids.
So in your opinion, Alicia, the cheapest option is to keep the schools as they are instead of consolidating?
I have not come to that conclusion yet.
Okay. All right. That's all.
I'll ask Taylor Johnson,
182 Gillette Road. Is anyone concerned about the traffic flow with consolidating the schools all up here for our fire department? Getting in and out of this area at the stoplight with all traffic. So if that comes to anybody's mind on
If
that,
you do a traffic study, that would be a civil engineer thing.
okay, so that would be another issue with that. Now, if we do sorry. I know. If we do A2 is replacing the portables, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're kind of just like,
They're like kind of beyond their end of life.
okay, all right, so that explains that part.
And the A1 option for Bakerville was just about the same amount of money
Yeah,
as the
which makes
A2.
Nobody wants to explore the A2 option for New Hartford, like the two comparisons for that, I mean, it's like 3 million. It's really not that far off. So we wanted to just cut that out.
The A2 option for New Hartford had a price tag to the town of like 13 million versus the A1 option is
10,
3.
right?
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
a $10 million
so-
difference between
How
a $10 million difference roughly for New Hartford Elementary, specifically between the A1 and A2.
A1 is based on the facility conditions report that we went over a few meetings ago.
Yeah,
A2 renovated is new. They're gonna replace a lot of stuff and make it like new. That's above and beyond what the facility conditions report was.
but on page 25 of her report, can you go back to number 25, slide 25, there you go. So on this one, it says 10 versus 13 for New Hartford. So I think the other one is wrong. I think the one you guys are looking at, with the 10 million, is
Got it.
not correct.
It should be the same number.
So here's the 10 million,
Yep,
10.3.
Oh, so what you have here on this summary is the reimbursement amount and not the top cost to the town.
Oh, I screwed something up there, okay.
Thank you.
so what I'm saying is right,
Yep,
correct? Okay,
yep.
so it's really only a $3 million difference.
It's a $3 million difference.
Make a whole new.
Yeah. And that would increase
Yes.
the overall maintained existing address facility condition by roughly 10 million to 39 million.
Now, one other question.
No, no,
Do we have
Oh, sorry. Oh, no, this total is right. So sorry, yeah, the
Yeah.
total, so this total has not changed here, but they're just for the school.
Yep,
Again, just to make
that's
sure,
what
yeah.
I'm wondering, it's not the
Yeah.
total, I'm just looking at New Hartford as a whole.
Yeah,
Versus
just that
A1
one
versus-
cell.
It was
Just this one cell is incorrect on this page, and it should be,
On the summary, yeah.
but the total is pulling in properly.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. Sorry. Want to make sure we get
No, no,
that
I have
corrected.
one other question, I was trying to think of it.
Oh, sorry.
So do we have any kind of idea how much this would cost per taxpayer in our different options? So like, if we break it down, right?
Too much.
Okay, but anything's gonna cost us money, no matter where you live. If you move somewhere else, you're gonna pay money for kids to go to school. It's just how it is. And quite frankly, the older generation just keeps saying that we shouldn't have to spend the money, but they sent their kids through this school system and they utilized it and it was perfectly fine. So in my question is, how much will it cost us taxpayers each in the different numbers, like, and for each option? Okay,
Yeah, that's like a town finance thing.
Okay.
Typically, I see towns will kind of find the median house range
yeah,
and apply that and show you what happens year to year.
okay, so is that something that will be in the study beforehand or no? What'd you say?
It typically isn't and happens a little bit after,
I
but
mean, I think that's probably something that we could tackle
That's
on
why-
top of.
That's why we went back to our criteria last week. There's like a net cost. Well, what's the cost to a taxpayer?
Yeah.
As part of our
So I'm
evaluation?
saying like even keeping it as is, right? Because
Really,
we have to do some sort of
We're on
update.
the same page, like, and there's a lot of, last week's meeting got long, so, but one of the topics about the evaluation criteria was not just what the overall, like, there's the high level cost, the reimbursement amount, the net cost, and that's gonna be some X millions of dollars. What's that mean for an average taxpayer over the life of whatever bond that we have? And so that's an important part here, because somebody might say, these are big numbers and what's it mean? Like, that's a part we need to figure out, as whether it's officially task force or it's Board of Finance or selectmen, like it's, I know Dan's giving some thought, given this expiring bond, how this comes into what the cost is relative to existing tax rates and potential tax increases. So there's a lot of financing here that needs to be figured out as part of how we think about what the.
So that seems like something, and it just tactically speaking about, because I think we would all like to see that number. Does anybody, sorry, I'm standing because my neck is broken. It's something we would all like to see and understand, right, and kind of like normalize, but it does sound like work that, like, I don't know, was in Michelle's purview. And so I'm wondering if, like, what the right next step is here. It's something as we as a task force can, like, is that another area where we like, from another subcommittee that can like get some work done on top of what Michelle is doing to kind of get to those
I
numbers?
can share a spreadsheet with you that I got from my town that did the same thing. It's
Okay.
just an Excel sheet.
I was just gonna say that whenever we spend off budget, because we have our budget, gets voted on, and when we spend off budget, it goes before the townspeople again to vote on. That's always like a priority. How is it going to affect my pocketbook? And we always try to provide that information to the taxpayer so they can know and understand what that is before they vote on it. I don't know that we'll get to that in this task force. We'll probably have some kind of an idea, but then it depends on the interest rates and the
Yeah.
grant reimbursements.
My main concern is that the older generation is concerned about how much money this is gonna cost them tax-wise. So I think maybe they need to realize, maybe the $75,000 option is gonna cost me way more than the $19,000 or $29,000 option. Maybe they're not realizing it that way. Maybe they'll realize it in a way of, it's gonna cost you this much in taxes versus this much.
I think it's in my opinion, I think it's reasonable for us as a task force to try to get to a point of view on those numbers before we make a recommendation to the Board of Ed.
I would volunteer if there's a committee, if we can form a committee, I'll volunteer for a subcommittee, I'll volunteer for that and work with.
I'll work on it, but all we need to do is figure out what the interest rate is, and we will look at what our annual payment is per $1 million bonded.
Yeah.
And then once you know that, so we're bonding 10 million, then here's what the way we would typically do it is to say, here's your tax increase per $100,000 of valuation on your house.
And that helps also for the survey of like what this actually means, so.
John, I can be on that task force with you, because we also need to get information from the treasurer as to our bond rating that does affect the interest rate. It's more complicated than, interest rates, especially with this level, is a significant variant.
I would like to, I think, then make a motion that we form a subcommittee to help study and analyze and present numbers on the relative tax burden per household for each of the options as part of this facility. And I would further go on to motion that include John Puz, Ben Whitty, and Carrie
That's what I was
Guilfoyle.
gonna say. Second.
Yeah, great, second by Alicia. Any further discussion on the formation of this task
I would
force?
do it per household.
Per household?
Yes.
Per
Per 100,000 valuation, just how we do the typical budget increase. We have that
Great.
formula down. It's just really about looking at what the loan options are going to be realistically, at least at this point.
Okay. Elizabeth, I know you're on there. I can help you clean up that language. I think we're all on the same page in terms of what the motion should be. So any further discussion on the formation of the subcommittee? No. All those in favor of the subcommittee? That is unanimous. Here, great. Thank you all so much. Go ahead, Shelley.
Shelley Lloyd, I'll try to Pioneer Drive. I agree with the idea of exploring what this would cost possibly. But you're gonna be projecting this out a few years, and, just giving our selectmen and our treasurer and the other people that are on this committee, and Board of Finance, just a star on their forehead, unless you've got a really good crystal ball, you are really gonna just be estimating. So I think people need to know that what you're giving them is your best estimate of what you think this is gonna be, because there's absolutely no way to know. And we don't know, like you say, what the reimbursements are gonna be,
Well, even
what's gonna happen to the
enrollment.
pension fund that year, you know, something could go down again. We don't know the other things that play into our tax rate at all.
Yep.
And we don't know what the interest rates are gonna be at that time, I mean, we just don't know. So it'll be an estimate that it's worth doing.
I trust the subcommittee to help kind of walk through that conversation. Again, it's just about, for me, it's about relative numbers, and not any commitments, because everybody who's paying attention knows that, again, the work starts and then everything goes from there.
Yeah, and I just want to add one thing to this because I think it's important to include in the conversation. We need to maintain our buildings, period. So I think it's important to know that that's part of the town's already capital plan, and that's one of the reasons we're doing this project, is to understand the larger picture of our capital plan that we've been pushing down the road for the past few years and is obviously shown in the condition of our buildings.
So the numbers of if you're gonna consolidate, right, that does not add in maintaining these buildings as well, correct? So if you were gonna consolidate into 2 schools, and let's just say leave Bakerville out, that does not add in the costs on there, on your spreadsheet, that does not add in maintaining that building to keep it up.
No, but that would apply to all the options, essentially.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, that was a good country rebudget.
Result of pay for, so it's still an additional cost to us taxpayers.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
we still have to understand that at the end of the day, that us consolidating in that 70 whatever thousand, it's gonna be more than that because we're still maintaining these buildings that are empty, that we still own as a town.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, and then are you gonna get us a price on if they don't do everything? Cause you're like 29,000 for.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, 29 million for those is doing every single thing on your list, like your level 1 to level 4.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so if they do them over a span of time, and let's just say your level 1 and level 2 was your top, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just say you just do level 1 and level 2, are you gonna give us a price for just level 1 and level 2?
I essentially did, but I can start to factor in the reimbursement on those. But in that initial thing, I had charts in that, yeah.
Okay. But then they could potentially add that in the other stuff over the years.
As we kind of like start narrowing in on the options, like those are the questions we would be asking about each of those options, right? Again, like what, okay, this is again the high level number of like what the programming is, and going back to the programming, what do we need? Like the programming counts for like, for example, a gym of like a certain square footage that's like larger, like if we could only get 80% of the way there for one of the sites in order to fit it, like what does that do? You know, all of that kind of stuff I would assume is part of that narrowing process. Because Michelle's gonna give us options and tell us what's feasible, and then it's our purview to say, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Yes,
One
sir,
more question.
yes.
I know you guys are talking about.
Sorry, this is Zachary Johnson again.
Sorry.
That's okay, it's,
I know you guys are talking about starting the process for the survey. Is that something you guys are planning on rolling out soon, or is that gonna be like a longer drawn out process? Because obviously, she still needs to provide all of us with what is feasible, and in all reality, that survey shouldn't go out until we know what is feasible.
Right. So what we would start to do as a subcommittee is start to put together the framework of what we'd be looking to kind of go for, and then obviously modify it based upon what Michelle presents to us in the task force, kind of helps funnel it down.
Thank you.
yes,
Dan Jarrett, 535 Temple Road. Just a couple comments. I think that your sentiments on B, option B, that everybody seemed to, I'll just say it before I start. Really enjoyed the conversation and I go digging into this. Couple of points I thought that were worthy. The trying of combining Bakerville and or New Hartford into either one of those locations, I think your intuition is gonna be worn out there. I just don't see how that would work. I don't know if there's any space metrics in terms of Bakerville, in terms of, you double the size of the building, you're gonna double the size of the parking, you're gonna double the size of the things. I don't see how that would work without going up. And then you bore out that point that you really can't go up. And I think Alicia's point, which we had talked about in the past, I think you're gonna find that the floodplain issues, which were documented when the last edition were done, you're not gonna be able to expand that in any way, shape, or form. That northwest corner there is the tip of the floodplain, and it's almost wholly, that thing's on an knoll and it's all floodplain. But I still get stuck on this whole thing that I mentioned at the last meeting I attended, that if your perfect scenario to build a new school here is at 80,000 square feet, and you have two buildings that total 85,000 square feet. In theory, where Mr. Johnson was going, was that in theory, we'd say hypothetically, if you had to move some walls around, you have the space to be able to do two buildings. And yet, I think we're struggling and getting bogged down on numbers, and we're having a hard time buying into the concept because we're distracted by large numbers that have multiple zeros. And maybe it's good, because sometimes you gotta confront those issues and you gotta understand you can't operate in a vacuum, because you gotta kind of know in your heart what you want, but you're also gotta talk to your head about how you're gonna pay for it. And with that, I'll also say is that we've also been told by Region 7 that they're working on a project, right? And the roof alone is gonna be $10 million. We're 52% of that. So if it's just the roof, that's $5 million. I doubt it'll be just the roof. Because like any older building, which that's 1950s vintage too, it probably has needs also. Yeah, which is gonna elevate their cost. So, so with that, the only other point I was stuck on was that, you know, we had this entirety of the presentation, the way we look at Bakerville versus the way we look at New Hartford Elementary. In most cases, when you look at those reimbursement rates, they're not attractive when they're in the 20s, right? It just doesn't move my needle, you know, especially if you're at 45, you always want the ideal. But in theory, if we make changes now, is it true that if we made changes now to programming and we raised up enrollment in any other one building, that the reimbursement rate would change?
The reimbursement goes up, the more students in the building.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we look at it in this one analysis, and we see that Bakerville has a higher reimbursement rate. But in reality, if we changed course now, we could manipulate the reimbursement rate for the other building, which is larger than Bakerville in the first place. Right?
Yeah, but Bakerville has an additional credit because it's older. So there, is that what you're seeing, you mean? Like the numbers are?
No, I'm just saying that in theory, that if there were more kids in the building, before we enter down this road, the bond we're paying for 30 years might look different if we modify that. We by self-determination, could change our financial position,
Gotcha.
right? So the other thing is, you made a point about doing the building here, and I was just curious, because you made a comment off the cuff about you pumped in $2.5 million for site development costs on a new structure to access the site work. Is that a typical cost?
It's a rough number. I should call it really an allowance. I think on the smaller building, I called it 2 million because there's a lot of grading here. There's going to be a lot of site work. So I just reviewed it with my boss, and that was the number we kind of threw at it for now. Like I said, I am checking in with the CM to see if they want to give me anything better or if they have any other thoughts.
I was just, if that was typical, I think that just from our experience, because we all hear, there's nothing but rock in the backyard here. So all three of our sites have challenges. Bakerville has challenges because it's just purely small.
Yep.
New Hartford has challenges because of that floodplain. And I think here is that, and I don't know whether that $1,000 a foot number should be modified.
It's the number we're seeing now. We feel comfortable with that number, but like I said, I am double checking because things change quickly in this market lately. So.
I thought if it's ledge, it might increase the cost.
Well, yeah, ledge is going to be more difficult. Yes, I mean, but again, until we have more information, it's all we can do is kind of put some thoughts at it. but I can review that, yeah,
Totally understand, we're still in the pre stage. Thank you.
no problem.
Any other comments? I don't see any online, but again, raise your hand if you are there and have something to say. Yes.
Karen Nelson, Stedman Road, New Hartford. I would like to commend all of you for all the time and work that you're putting in on this. I remember my 8 years on the Board of Ed many years ago, and I remember my time spent with Mr. Jerem and several other gentlemen on the building committee. What was it, back in the 1990s? Because your son was little, he was quite little.
2001.
And we had theater, and there was projected a much greater population of children, and that was the reason for the expansion and the improvements that we made. At this point in time, I'm not sure that the population of school-age children has increased to the extent that we thought it was going to, and the population here has changed so that the age is older for us, older people. So I'm kidding when you call us out. But I commend you for continuing to look at this, but I also would encourage you to remember that this is a town and all people who support education also want to see that the tax rate and whatever allows this a multi-population, multi-generational population in which we have continued to attract young people that will stay here and make this a multi-generational, healthy population to grow, which is not really doing at this point. So I encourage you to look at that, just from a philosophical viewpoint.
The young people move here for the schools, I will say that.
That
Yeah,
is
our
absolutely
generation
correct.
moves here because of the schools, because they're smaller schools, so I will say that.
And that is a problem because those of us that have stayed here and continued on and continue to be on boards and whatever, the failure and I've worked in other towns too, the failure of your planning and zoning commissions, all of you commissions to have young people on them. You need to hear your voices on all phases of what is going on in the town for a multi-generational town and for us older people to support the money that is going to be putting into these schools.
Karen, I don't know if there is an enrollment study that's uploaded on the website that we went over already.
Okay.
If you didn't see it yet, it's there.
Yeah, but it has never reached the level that we expected.
No,
No, it's not.
And it would not appear that it will.
no.
Yes.
All right.
So,
I'm going to close public comment for now. And thank you, everybody, for the thoughtful discussions and questions. Feel good about everything. Okay, great. I'm going to move on to item G, old business, the update from the Stakeholder Engagement Committee. I don't know if you all have anything to add to what we've already discussed tonight.
The only thing that we would add is that we did reach out to the town and to central office. I did ask about for us to kind of get an idea for anticipated survey responses. We did ask the superintendent's office, the types of responses that they've gotten from the school engagement surveys that have been done. So it typically has ranged anywhere from 125 to 144 over the last 2 years. They are 3 to 5%. Thanks, Shelley. So it's, it's there, but it's not ideal. And then when it comes to referendum voter numbers for the last couple of years, it ranged from 305 to 602. So there's an average of 384, with the exception of the turnout for the water and sewer asset sale referendum.
What was that turnout?
1,268.
I just assumed that this would hopefully come in a little bit closer to something.
Yeah, a referendum isn't a direct
Yeah.
comparison,
Yeah.
but it's a level of participation,
Yeah.
so that's what I looked at.
So We're hoping that maybe we can estimate a response rate of 400 with 2/3 online and 1/3 in hard copies. We've started the process of reaching out to different locations. We've gotten okay for town hall and the town clerk's office, tax collectors, first selectman office, and the senior center, and then the senior van for those who have mobility challenges getting indoors to town hall. Barden Market, Farm Market, totally fine doing that for us. Both libraries, totally fine having them there as well. We're in the process of reaching out to the different businesses now as well that we've discussed, and then we'll check on schools too. We did tell, or Mary Beth had talked to the town clerk's office, and they can verify property owners. For others, we would have to figure out how to verify addresses. So that's still a work in progress for that, but again, we're meeting next week, as we said, to kind of help lay out some of that framework.
Thank you so much for the update.
And the only other thing is, we also spoke with Frank Rodenberg, and he said he could get some students to do data entry if we needed. Frank.
Awesome. Sounds great.
So Samantha, is there any way to find out how many renters are in town? Because those are gonna be the difficult ones to.
Right, and based on our
verify.
conversation with Lynn last night, I didn't get a follow-up from her, so, the short answer right now is no.
Do we want to re-explore the possibility of doing the mailer to get more community
I think, the cost of doing a mailer would be, I think as we stated last time, I would prioritize that for the referendum.
Yeah, towards the end.
Yeah.
To get people to come out and do it.
Right, and we did get a couple other, the New Hartford Diner was added as an option, somebody mentioned that. But, yeah, so.
What?
And the other question you asked last time was about the
For
cost.
the survey, to leave a survey there for people to take and fill out.
Okay.
And you asked about the cost last time. That's why we're trying to estimate how many physical copies we would need. I asked Christine about possibly just making copies at the town hall, and she said that may be an option. So once we figure out exactly how many we need, and we can always start lower and make more for them. So we may not have a huge cost here.
Okay. And then exploring the different online options, platforms that we can utilize.
I have 2 questions. Is there a homeowner?
Sorry.
I know, it's not, I'll talk to you later.
That's our update.
Thank you. Do you want to entertain questions?
Sure.
Is there a homeowners association of River Run? And if there is, that would be one way to get the renters there. And is there any way to do something like a QR code on the Friday folder that would take them to be able to print out the survey?
We can do that, I know.
You know.
For accessing the online thing, yes, we can do that. If Penny's still on, hearing QR code, I'm sure she's hitting her armrest. But yeah, there's a way that we would make it accessible for the online version.
We don't need a QR code for the Friday folder because everything's digital anyway, so
Yeah,
it would just be like a link, so.
Where?
Just
I
avoid the
believe there is a
QR code.
homeowners association.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could check with Lynn. I'm writing it down now, thank you.
I'm gonna move on to action, item H, which is action steps for next meeting. So again, just a reminder, so our next gathering will be at a public informational meeting on May 2nd, which is a Saturday at 1 p.m. at the Senior Center. We'll do a quick rundown of everything we have learned so far and take questions back and forth with the community. After that, our next regular meeting of the task force will be here on May 13th at 7 p.m. And then we'll have another informational meeting on May 19th on Tuesday. The expectation for the meeting on May 13th is that we'll be looking at all of the options that we've kind of like identified tonight in more detail. So the meeting on the 19th will be, again, just sort of like a digging in at that point in time, because we'll have more information about all of these options, so. Thank you,
Question on the public information, do we have a format for that? Who's running that? What have we decided on that?
So my hope is that we can get Michelle to come on May 2nd and do a sort of like condensed version of like everything we've walked through right now, some of the summary slides of some of the presentations that we have. So again, for the facilities conditions, for the enrollment projections, for all those, just kind of like, again, condensing down the learning without going through the details, so we can set that up. And then again, I would really just envision a Q&A, because again, the point is to have more of a robust conversation between the members of the task force and the members of the public.
Okay.
Are we gonna present the options with the dollar amounts that we saw in the summary slide?
I think we should, I'm a little nervous about putting the dollar amounts out there. I mean, I know they're out there right now. We can revisit them as are. We'll just put a big asterisk on them that like they're in, like those numbers are in flux right now. They're in further development. Okay, that is it. I will take a motion to adjourn. You're motioning to adjourn? Great. Ben, any seconds? Second by John. All those in favor? Aye, that was unanimous. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
People at my school used to say, Charlie, I didn't see this. They jump off the page of me. And it's on both pages that are like this.
It's the same one.
Yeah.
It's the same, yeah. Thank you. I'm not gonna be like, I'd rather make it better for them.
Okay, sorry, thank you. I know that it's hard time to get all these
Yeah.
in. Appreciate it, Ben.
I know how to spell square, it's square. That one I know.
Yeah.